Greetings. You're listening to the WCEG Network, where we are the worldwide community empowerment group, where we speak truth into the community. Please take a moment to log on to WCEGtalkradio.com. Watch us live on your smart TV, on Roku cable channel, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and now Fanbase and Blue Sky. Search for WCEG and subscribe on all social media platforms. I'm Anthony C. Aiken, co-host, along with my other host, Herman Anderson. And for the next hour, you'll be listening to a great show with our guests today. So download our free WCEG mobile app. Alexa, play WCEG Talk Radio, and listen to WCEG on any of our 12 podcast distribution platforms. Last but not least, we must give you the disclaimer: the topics and opinions are those of the show hosts and guests, and not WCEG Network. And thank you for your continued support. Herman, how are you doing today?
We're doing great, my brother Anthony. I'm Herman Anderson. I'm one of the co-hosts, Anthony the other, of Veteran Today. We are glad to have our audience. We welcome our guests who will be introduced shortly. We are here to empower the community. We've been doing this for close to 10 years now, and we want to keep doing that, and we want to keep helping veterans and their families. So,
well, Herman, you couldn't say it much better, because this has just been an outstanding opportunity for us to provide truth into the community. And today, we have what I consider a mentor, a big brother, a friend, someone I've watched a number of years, talked to many, many, many times, read his book a couple of times, and I've actually been on a few opportunities where we were providing information about our experiences in the military. So today we have Brigadier Retired General Steve Stevens. Welcome, sir. How are you doing?
Good morning, or is it afternoon? Good afternoon. Doing well, thank you.
Well, like old Army guys, Herman's Air Force guy. So, we've been up since yesterday. So
actually, I've been up since 6.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And I was at 3 hours before you then. So, but I tell you what, it's so good for you to take time to be with us today. And as always, we like for our guests to tell us a little bit about themselves, so our audience would know who you are, where you're from, what you've done, and then we'll delve into the day's program. So it's on you, sir. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I was born in Welch, West Virginia, 21 September 1940, a long time ago. I graduated from high school and went to West Virginia State College. When I got there, they had an ROTC unit. It took one drill, and I decided that morning that I was going to be an Army officer. And so all of my energy for the next 4 years at West Virginia State College was put into becoming the best Army officer I could possibly be. In my senior year, I was selected to be the cadet colonel, commander of the Corps. On the 10th of August, 1962, I was commissioned a second lieutenant of infantry, regular Army. They only gave 2 regular commissions a year, and that year I got one of them. I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, learned how to jump out of perfectly good flying airplanes. And from there, I went to the 101st Airborne Division, where my job was jumping out of perfectly good flying airplanes. And from there, I went to Special Forces in Panama, continued to jump out of perfectly good flying airplanes. And from there, I went to Vietnam for my first tour. I had a company in Vietnam. I got shot in the Ashar Valley. I came home, did the normal stuff of going to courses, and went and got a master's degree, and went back to Vietnam the second time, where I was an S3 advisor in Kinh Hoa province. After that, I came back to the 101st Airborne Division again, then went to the Pentagon. That was my first trip to the Pentagon. Pentagon's a great place to work. 25,000 people in that building. I left the Pentagon and went to command a battalion at Fort Lewis, Washington. So from the time I got started, somewhere in there, I was promoted to captain, I was promoted to major, I was promoted to lieutenant colonel. After I came out of Fort Lewis, Washington as a battalion commander, I went back to the Pentagon, and the colonel's list was published, and I was the only Black lieutenant colonel promoted below the zone that year. Now, you folks don't know what below the zone means. That means an early promotion. So after that, I went to the War College. I went to the National War College. And from there, I became the Inspector General for the entire military district of Washington, D.C. From that job, I went to Brigade Command in Panama, where I had 14 different countries where I had troops. I left there, came back to the Pentagon, and was on the promotion list for full colonel. For brigadier general. I was promoted to full colonel when I was the IG at the military district. From that job, I went back to Fort Lewis, Washington, where I was an assistant division commander. And from there, I went to Thailand, best tour I've ever had, where I was the chief of the Joint Military Advisory Group in Bangkok, Thailand. And from that job, I went to be in charge of Bill Clinton's first inauguration, Washington, D.C. And I retired from the military at that point. Came out, Governor Caperton in West Virginia. I went back to West Virginia. Caperton made me director of personnel for the state of West Virginia. Stayed in that job a couple of years. Then I came to Georgia. And my military career was over. And so I've been here in Georgia ever since then.
Sir, that is absolutely outstanding. What do you think, Herman?
It's amazing. I sit here and listen at his journey, and it's wonderful. And I'm ready to hear more of the wisdom he has for veterans, the wisdom he has for the current generation, and what we're dealing with today. So,
well, you know, the thing that was impressive with me is the times, and the time of him being commissioned as second lieutenant. And the military, as we all know, was much different back then. But it seemed as though that you were in the right job, working with the right people, but the bottom line, you performed. And if you didn't perform, you would not have had those below the zones. And I understand that fully, below the zones, not only as a major, but also as you went up higher in the rank. So what do you think attributed to that?
Well, I had good upbringing. My dad was about 5 feet 4 inches tall, weighed about 160 pounds. He was a coal miner. We owned a little business, and he preached on Sunday. And he gave me a value set that says you work hard, you complete what you start, you don't stop, you complete what you start, and you do your best all the time. And you treat everybody with decency and respect. That's not difficult for me. Now, like every other Black man, I bumped up against this discrimination and all that kind of stuff. You know what I did? I ignored it. You discriminate against me, it doesn't bother me one bit. I just keep doing what I'm doing and ignore your ignorance. And that's kind of been my mantra for a long time. Now, I get really angry if my wife who I've been married to for 62 years, gets discriminated against.
Yeah.
My wife or my children, now you got some problems with me. But I can handle it. So it's just doing what's right. That's not hard for me to do.
I totally agree. Doing what's right. Like you, Herman, and I, we've all had forms of discrimination against us in our careers. You taking my job, your affirmative action. Were you enlisted before you got promoted to an officer? All of those kind of things. But like you said, you ignore it. And you go high when they go low. You go high when they go low.
If you can. Sometimes, I'm not beyond getting angry. And I'm not beyond telling them off. And if you read my book, you'll see I said in many cases, in fact, I was looking a couple of nights ago, and a lot of guys that I worked for have already passed, but I overcame some of the things that some of the obstacles they put in front of me.
Well, like I said, I've read your book a couple of times, and I can recall when you were in the job in Washington, D.C., and the adversity that you were up against with the higher ranking officers because you were in that key and vital position. I mean, that was a very serious job for a person of color to lead the presidential scenario for the newly elected president, President Clinton.
Yeah, well, that was a great job. You know, I met Quincy Jones in that job. I met Michael Jackson in that job. I met some very important people in that job. I met Ted Kennedy in that job. I just had a great time.
Well, that's my comment. I think you were doing a great job. You were in a great job, and it's good to be able to enjoy what you are doing. And I think that's a great opportunity to be able to be in a position to help people, to be in a position of authority and enjoy the ride.
You know, Herman, I was thinking last night, what will I say tomorrow when I talk to these guys? And the thing that kept coming back up in my mind is nobody enjoyed their job more than I did for 30 years, 9 months, and 21 days in the Army. I loved every minute of it.
Well, sir, I can say the same thing
that's
for
great.
26 years.
And I'm a Vietnam veteran. I'm an Air Force guy, and I didn't spend a career in there. I spent 4 years in there as an enlisted man. Then I got out and did my life journey working for AT&T in the Bell system. So but to the Vietnam guys, that those of us that are still living, and I enjoy listening to you, people like you all the time. I just turned 80, so I'm in the same neighborhood as you.
Yeah, but
Okay,
you're young.
I'm the baby.
I'm the baby. You're a youngster.
I'm the baby. I'm still trying to get to 75.
Come 21 September, I'm going to be 85.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, sir, what kind of advice that you would give to the current young upcoming officers going into a system now that's really being attacked by the new administration? And as you know, you and I have had serious conversations about that. What kind of advice would you give to them going into a system that's basically trying to dismantle from within?
Well, keep your eye on your goals. Nobody can achieve your goals but you. And so set goals and don't just drift along. Kind of figure out where you want to go and what you want to do, and keep focused on that. Hey, and if you can, marry well.
Totally
I
understand.
met my wife in the 7th grade. I knew in the 9th grade she was going to be my wife. And I've been with her for 62 years.
Well, I met your beautiful bride, and I know she's put up a lot with you over those years.
Uh, along along those lines, career-wise, and Anthony and I discussed this over the years. Uh, uh, I have family members, I have grandkids that finish in high school. So, what's your advice on young people today as to one of their options, making it one of their options, consider joining the military?
Well, I have a grandson graduating this year. I have a granddaughter who just got her master's at Syracuse last year. And I tell them, I'm a lucky person. I knew what I wanted to do when I was like 20 years old. And I focused on that. I don't know what happens to people who switch around and switch around and switch around. I think you have to kind of figure out where you want to go and think about what you need to do to get to the goals that you set. There's nobody out there to give you anything. You have to earn everything you get. And if you don't know where you're going, you ain't going to figure out how to get there. So figure out as soon as you possibly can what you want to do and stay with it. Now, that probably goes against what the current thinking is out there. Nobody knows where they're going. They just kind of drift around and they do all. I don't think that, well, I know that wouldn't have worked for me. So if you can, and that's what I keep telling my grandson, kind of figure out what you want to do and start working toward that. That was easy for me. Now, again, and I hate to keep bringing this up, but my spouse kind of agreed with me. So we knew as a team kind of where we wanted to go. I remember I had a 3-year commitment as a regular Army officer. And I said to her at about 2 years, well, I guess we'll be going back to West Virginia. My 3rd year is coming up. She looked at me and she said, I kind of like this. Why do you want to go back to West Virginia? I kind of like this. We were in Panama. And I said to myself, well, if she like it, I love it. This is it. So hopefully you can pick where you want to go and just kind of stick with it. And it ain't gonna all be pretty.
No.
So let me put another item out there. I went to Savannah State, Anthony went to Tuskegee, so we all 3 of us went to historically Black college and university. So what's your comment on, you have some people saying, are they still valuable? I think they're growing, and I think they are valuable. What do you think?
Herman, I have a daughter who graduated from the military academy. She has a law degree from the University of Virginia. I have another daughter who graduated from the University of Virginia, went on to Columbia and got a master's in international relations. My grandson says, I want to go to an Ivy League school. You know what I tell him? I went to West Virginia State College. It just so happens that the same information that is at Harvard is at West Virginia State College. You have to go for the information wherever you are. My wife has a saying, bloom where you're planted. And so you don't have to go to Harvard to get educated. I have a doctorate from Bluefield State College. When I graduated from high school, I had two choices, Bluefield State or West Virginia State. My dad had a sixth grade education and my mom had maybe a third grade education. So I'm the first person in my family to go to college. My brother is a judge. He went to West Virginia State and then he went to Howard. Bloom where you're planted. Make it work. It'll work.
I just wrote that one down. Bloom where you're planted. That
Great words of wisdom.
Bloom where you're planted. I mean, that's extremely important. What I appreciate, sir, and I'm sure you could say the same, is that while we're in the ROTC programs at Tuskegee and in West Virginia State College, we have some great mentors.
Oh, yeah.
Individuals that were out there before. I know Lieutenant Colonel retired Arthur J. Seabrook, South Carolina State graduate, infantry company commander in Vietnam, Purple Hearter, all those things. And he came back to Tuskegee my sophomore year, and he just told us what the real deal would be. We are going to drill you to the point that when you leave this university, at that time was institute, you could fit in anywhere in the United States Army.
Or anywhere else. That's what I used to say. That's what I still say about HBCU. You may not get the highest education, but you know how to live in the world. And exactly. That's what success is getting around in the world. It's not about acquiring knowledge. You need to learn how to get along with everybody.
Well, sir, one other thing that Herman and I always talk about and we elaborate on, after the military service, you did 30 years, and you got out and went to work in the state of Virginia, West Virginia, and then later on into another opportunity. How would you tell veterans right now to prepare for that transition, because you're coming from a very structured environment to an environment which is somewhat different than what you've dealt with for 30 or 20 something years in the military? What's your advice to them?
Well, I hate to keep coming up with cliches, but keep your eyes open, your ears open, and your mouth shut for about the first year. You don't know everything. Just keep your mouth shut and keep your ears open and your eyes open and learn what's going on. I didn't do well when I first got out because I thought I knew a lot. You don't know hardly anything about what's going on out here in the world that's not military. Military is a very exclusive community. It's regulated. You're well paid. You eat well. You live well. Somebody's taking care of you all the time. You get out here, you got to make your own way. And so, eyes open, ears open, and your mouth shut for about the first year.
Well, I could agree with you on that being lost a little bit, because when I retired in 1990, matter of fact, the 31st of this month will be 26 years. When that ceremony was over in Washington, D.C., and I said to myself, what am I going to do tomorrow?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? And when I went back home and I looked in my closet, I really didn't have any clothes other than military clothes.
Well, yeah, that's the start. They even give you something to wear.
I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And some friends came over and along with my wife, and they literally just laughed at me to the point of, boy, you're in bad shape. We got to reinvent you. So that happened to you?
I had a retirement parade at Fort Myer, and as I made my turn around reviewing the troops and started to head back to the reviewing stand, they played a medley of songs, and it was all airborne songs. The 82nd Airborne Division song, the 101st Airborne Division song, the Green Beret song. I almost lost it because that's all I'd ever known. Since I left high school, the only thing I had known was military. And so it was a tough transition for me, really a tough transition. And it has to end sometime. And you just start from scratch. You're not going to start at the top. That was hard. I was a general. The people where I went to work didn't give a damn what I was. And so you have to learn how to take care of yourself.
Yeah,
Eyes open, ears open,
mouth
learn
shut.
and pay attention. Yeah, keep your mouth shut.
Well, Herman, he did have a little bit of getting back with the military. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that work that you were doing with Eagle Group with the U.S. Army Reserve?
The
Did you hear my question, sir?
Say it again.
I said, did you hear the question? Yes, you had a little bit going on when you retired and later on with
Okay.
Eagle Group,
Well,
and you worked with the Reserve.
I was working with Eagle Group. I thought you were asking Herman that question.
No,
I worked with Eagle Group, and that was I was in a small room at the reserve headquarters at Fort McPherson, and I had 5 colonels and me. That was a rough office. Hey, and they were all white colonels. And they, I had to really be stiff in there. I didn't sit in the same room with them. I sat out front. So everybody knew who was in charge.
absolutely.
And so it was a great job. I was working for a guy I'd gone to college with. He's a great guy. But I knew I wasn't going to go anywhere because his family was his business was a family business, and I wasn't family. So I had to figure out what are you going to do, Stevens? You're not going to get promoted in Wally's outfit. So I went to Clayton State.
Yeah, tell our audience a little bit about that job.
Okay, when I first went in, I went to the School of Business, and I went in as an advisor. I didn't have a clue of what I was getting ready to do. I was advisor to students, and I taught a class, an orientation class for freshmen for 2 years. I looked around, I paid attention, and the president sent word to me that he wanted to talk to me. And he said, I have a job that you may be interested in, executive assistant. Now, when I took that job at the School of Business, I took it for $50,000 a year. They didn't want to pay me. That's the first thing you're going to find out. They don't want to pay you. They say, you got a retirement. the fact that you earn that retirement on your own doesn't mean anything. They didn't want to pay me any money. So I went to work as an executive assistant. After about 6 months, he made me a vice president of a position that he had fired a lady from. So now I had 2 jobs. I was talking to him one day and I said I had been a race relations officer. He said, "Oh, you know about equal opportunity? Well, why don't you start handling these cases?" So I took that job over. So now I got 3 jobs. He was paying me $87,000 a year. He gets this guy leaves. New president comes in, he says, "They tell me you got 3 jobs." I said, "Yeah." He says, "I'm going to pay you what you deserve." So he raises my salary to $140. Hello. But by that time, I'm the man. I knew everything. In another role, I would have been called the chief of staff. But on that campus, they just called me the executive assistant to the president. I ran things. What's the motto? When in charge, take charge.
Take charge. Now you've become a threat.
Well, you learn how to handle that too.
You become a threat.
You learn how to handle that too. That you can't show all your cards all the time. And you can't push people around. In the military, there are times when you could push people around. But out here in civilian world, you can't push people. I mean, they look at you like, who do you think you're talking to? Plus, I found out there are some places where everybody's equal. One is church. Everybody in that congregation in church is equal in the eyes of God and the preacher. And so you learn how to get along. You can't be right all the time, even though you think you are.
Absolutely.
And so it's those kinds of things that, at 84, I can look back and I made a lot of mistakes, but I hopefully learned from most of those mistakes.
Well, I would like to say I'm going to read your book, and also the job at Clayton State and the lesson that you learned. What nuggets or what you could put out to people that are coming through that stage of life now is how to, if you're in a situation you were and you manage it well, you got pay increases and you dealt with it, in my opinion, greatly. What in your final analysis, what you would like to tell us?
Well, when you're good at what you do, your tendency is to be braggadocious. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. Just do your job, do it the best you know how, and you got to treat everybody with decency and respect. I remember when I left the Pentagon the first time, I was working in the Joint Chiefs of Staff. My daughter was a lieutenant. And I took her over to the Joint Chiefs of Staff corridor and introduced her around. And then I took her to the custodian's room and I introduced her to the custodian. She retired as an 06. She's a full colonel. And even today, she'll say, I remember you didn't only take me in and introduce me to the secretaries and the executive assistants and those people. You took me and introduced me to the custodians. Everybody is equal. Everybody deserves respect. And everybody deserves your attention. That is a lesson that my dad taught me, and I never forgot it.
Good dad. Good dad. Sir, there were a couple of questions from our viewers that are watching the show on Facebook. And the first one was, how important would you say knowing your military benefits are for transitioning service members and their families?
It's very important. I've always admired you. You don't leave a stone unturned. You got everything that you thought you deserved. I have not been able to get everything that I thought I deserved. But as a vet, you're entitled to certain things, and you ought to pursue getting all of it.
Well, sir, even though you're about to hit 85 and jumped out many airplanes, it's never too late, because we always say to our listeners on the show that you've earned everything you've done.
Yeah,
everything you've done.
You earned it, and you're entitled to it.
And you're entitled to it. So we encourage not only you, but our listeners, and Herman can back me up on this. We have supported and helped many veterans receive benefits that they didn't think they could get, just because we encourage them to pursue it, because that's very, very important. No one to the VA is going to come and call you and say, hey, General Stevens, you did this, you jumped out of 1,000 airplanes, your knees are all jacked up, come on over here. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I did not jump out of 1,000 airplanes. So I don't want you to go there. I have 88 jumps.
That's a lot.
Hey, you don't be jumping out of airplanes just for fun. No, but back to the benefits. I think you ought to pursue every benefit that's out there that you're entitled to, and don't get upset if you don't. You and I talked a long time about 100%, because I thought I deserved something from Agent Orange. I was on the ground. I had 2 tours in Vietnam. They say I don't have Agent Orange. I'm fine with that. I'm glad I don't have Agent Orange. I'm fine with that.
I think that philosophy, and Herman can back me up on that, is changed somewhat, because the philosophy, if you had boots on the ground and you were in one of the 4 corridors, and even if you were in support with the Navy or in Philippines and Agent Orange and all that stuff was being transported, that's basically a given. And once you get yourself into the Agent Orange database and go to the VA and be, ask questions and all that, there's a possibility, sir, if you can, get a nice fat check.
Yeah, well, I've pursued, and just about a year ago, I went to see a guy and it didn't work out. I'm okay.
Well, as we go through this, it's I have a nonprofit, Veterans Helping Veterans, and I started 15 years ago. That's why I started, because they denied me in my college buddy down from Savannah State, and we decided we were gonna go after it, and we did. But leaning on your skills, your knowledge, your experience is what my question is, what advice would you have for example, any organization, but particularly my organization, which is Veteran Helping Veterans, and also there are the regular organization like the American Legion, the VFW, as to there is a lot of veterans, Vietnam era veterans, since I'm one of those, but younger veterans too, that got out of the military and transitioned into civilian life and not pursuing their benefits at all. And that's what me and Anthony have been talking about ever since we started this organization, is what would you recommend to really just to get their attention that the benefits are, that we have earned those benefits and an entitlement.
Yeah, I have a son. My son served during the Iraq War as a second lieutenant in the Pentagon. And we laugh about that all the time. Here, my son was an infantry lieutenant in a war going on in Iraq. And he's in the Pentagon. He went to Kuwait as a civilian. He started trying to get something out as a veteran. Well, as it turns out, he has diabetes. And so he gets a check for the diabetes and he gets all of his treatment. And he lives in Tacoma, Washington. And he gets better treatment at his facility than I get at mine here. But the point is, as Anthony already said, you never get too old to apply for your benefits. And so you need to apply for those benefits. Now, don't get upset if you don't get it the first time.
Well, sir,
that's part of the problem is you think you do something and you don't get it and you get upset and you go and you start cursing and walk away. That doesn't get it for you. You got to keep going back.
There's one thing that Herman and I have always advocated, not only for ourselves, but for veterans and their family members, is to utilize a veteran service organization along with that has a VSO, Veteran Service Officer, certified Veteran Service Officer, who can assist you with transitioning. It's extremely important. Say, for instance, you're a Purple Hearter. There's a Purple Heart VSO organization that can assist you with your particular claim. You're a Purple Hearter, you're on the ground, boots on the ground with Agent Orange. They know these things. And a lot of veterans do not utilize these services that as a third party, not associated with the VA, but that third party that is dedicated to assist General Stevens and anybody else with that particular process of getting benefits and compensation that they've earned.
Yeah, and don't be ashamed to ask.
I agree.
Don't be ashamed to ask.
I totally agree. And that's why it's so important for us to continue not only talking about the DD Form 214, which is something I think is a very, very important piece of paper for a veteran. And they should have it accessible not only for themselves, but their families, because would you say that the benefits now are twice as more for a veteran as it was when you came out?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, also let me make one quick point about the DD 214, and it's about burial, and because I get calls weekly where someone is trying to bury a family member that's a veteran and they don't have a copy of the DD 214, they don't know where to get one. So that is important.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. I agree. It's very, very important.
You know, I didn't realize for many, many years the DD 214 is what people used to call a discharge.
Correct.
And so you need your discharge.
Well, so that's old school.
That's old school, but that
Yeah, that's real old school. But
that
yeah, that Diddy Form 214 is just like Herman said, he gets calls all the time, and people call me all the time about it also. But it's very, very important. But I'm going to implore you, sir, you know, regardless if you're 85 or not, before good God calls you home, you know, let's see if we can get you some help through the Purple Hearters Association and to get something that you've earned. Don't let that go. That's millions of dollars out there.
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Okay. All right. All right. So um, one other thing I wanted to ask you in relationship to your book, how's that going?
Huh?
How's your book going? A lot of sales going on with it, or are you still encouraging people to go and find it, or what? How's that going for you, your book?
Oh, my book, I got 80 copies left.
Well,
I,
no, you
I,
got 79 because Herman has one
yeah,
coming.
I'm in my second printing, and they're probably I'm giving them away now to people. Like at church, if somebody asks me, you know, I understand you have a book. I'd like a copy. If I like the person, and I say that, if I like you, I'll give you a copy.
Herman, he likes you. Okay, you'll get one.
I'll give Herman a copy.
Yeah, he likes you, Herman. You're good.
But if I don't like you, it'll cost you $20. Because you know, in order to for me to purchase the books, it was $15 and some change per book.
Right.
And so people look at you when you say $20, they go, you know, well, I'm only making like $4 on the book. But I'll give you a copy, Herman.
Okay.
Well, Herman, I can tell you when you read it, it's just going to be, you can't put it down. I had to read it twice. And what I enjoyed was some of the old black and white photographs. You know, that's back in the day, old black and white photographs of his military career and
Well, you know,
gone.
the military for me was coming out of the coal fields of West Virginia. That was a way up and out of those coal fields.
Well, it's the same. My story is the same. I'm from South Georgia, and when I went to basic training in San Antonio in the Air Force, my drill sergeant was in the Air Force, but he had been in the Marine, and he yelled at me one day and said, "Speak up! You're not in the cotton fields in South Georgia anymore." So, so I always remember that.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, I was looking at people I've worked for, and you know, you evaluate everybody that you work for. They think they'll be evaluating you, but you also evaluating them. And I've had some interesting people that I've worked for. And they weren't all white.
Well, that's true, and I think Vietnam era veterans has has a lot to say, and basically society uh, don't listen to us. The American society didn't buy into the war anyway. When
No.
we came home, they made us take off our uniforms.
Right.
So it's
So when you came home, did you change clothes in Travis Air Force Base, or
I
I mean,
changed.
San Francisco Airport?
Actually, I flew into Seattle, and
Okay,
we changed at the airport.
okay. I
Put
changed.
on civilian clothes.
I flew into San Francisco, And I changed my uniform in the airport.
So did I.
That's all.
Totally understand. I totally understand. It was just not a good time.
Oh, it was tough out there, man. I'm
Not
gonna
a
tell
good
you.
time to be in the military. And
Plus, they had some dudes called Harry Krishnas.
yes,
They would run around
Yeah.
in some white robes, and they would get on your case.
yeah, I agree. They would get on your case quite a bit, and it was a very challenging time. But sir, we're getting ready to get into another challenging time. You know, you and I have had conversations about how the current administration, the 2025 administration, is somewhat closely knit to what happened in Nazism in 1933, 1934. What's your take on that right now as we move through this new administration in the military and how that's being affected?
It's bad. It's as bad as I've seen it. But you're gonna have to live through it. There's nothing you can do because the members of Congress are all cowards and they're not willing to step up, the Republican side, that is. They're cowards and they're not willing to step up. Your senator, Lindsey Graham, is he's awful. He knows better. That guy's a lawyer. He's a retired lieutenant colonel out of the Air Force. And he acts the way he's acting. Rubio. Trump's already kicked him to the side. But we're going to have to live with it. We're going to have to live with it at least through the midterm elections. And once we get to where we get another presidential, I mean, as it stands right now, Trump cannot be reelected. You can't get 3 terms. Lindsey says he supports changing the law. Well, I don't think we should change the law. I think this guy is awful, and we're just going to have to live through it.
Well,
Now, it doesn't say much.
what's that quote you mentioned that he stated that is it, I only can fix it? Is
Yeah.
that it?
Yeah, I got it over. I got the book over here in my book.
I tried finding the book at Barnes and Nobles 2 days ago, and it's not here in Atlanta. You have to order it, but that was a very intriguing comment to me about I only can fix it. This shows how much of a narcissist he is.
Well,
and how it's affecting this country.
That was also Hitler's motto. So they're playing from the same playbook.
Same playbook.
That's what I was trying to emphasize the other night.
Yeah, it's just amazing. You know, we have another comment. It was the Republican Party who changed the law back in the 1940s after FDR was elected for the 4th time. So, you know, him being reelected, no, we can't do that. That him trying to be a dictator, we can't allow that. You know, we just can't allow. I just hope as though that we have the intestinal fortitudes of a General Stevens, as we are now in the current military system, that they would have enough intestinal integrity to say, you can't do that, Mr. President. You can't do what you're trying to do.
Well, Milley was certainly a strong guy. Now, I don't know about the guys who are in there now. I can tell you that the guy who is the Secretary of Defense is a Trumper. The most that guy had ever commanded in the Army was a 40-man platoon. And we make him Secretary of Defense, and he fires a 4-star general. There's something wrong with that picture, Herman.
There's a lot wrong with it.
Not only that, they're now trying to switch back to some of the old names of the military installations.
Oh, they've done it.
They've already done it at Fort Benning. They've done it at Fort Bragg.
Yeah, they've already switched them. Now, what they did is they went and found some corporals and PFCs that they named them after. They didn't go back to the to the Civil War generals or the Confederate generals, it's like they think we're idiots. We're pretty well educated. We're not in the cotton fields in Herman's hometown. We're beyond that. We're pretty bright.
Yeah, we're bright. And at HBCU graduates, that's the thing that I love. HBCU graduates. Yeah.
Well, I think, like you say, you your term that you use by the first year is keeping your mouth shut and trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
In this situation, we had the midterm coming up. So what I'm thinking is the first year we do that, and we all already see a lot of self-destruction between them.
Oh,
Between them self-destructing and us coming up with a game plan, we ought to be able to make some changes at midterm.
Well, I predict that the Democratic leader will become the speaker. I think we'll take the House back. Now, I don't know about the Senate, but I think we'll take the House back. And I think Hakeem Jeffries will be the speaker. He's a bright guy. You know, when he speaks, he doesn't have any notes. He is a really, really bright guy. He reminds me of Obama, a young Obama. Now, I don't know if we'll ever have another black president, but I think things will change after the midterm.
I think so too.
Now, the women are coming along. That gal from Texas, Crockett, she's something.
Yep.
And she's smart.
Well, when you start finding people in the state of Vermont and some of those other places where the majority is not like us complaining,
yeah,
that's when you're going to start really having some concern. But sir, we got to come to a close now. It's just been a tremendous show. I am sure that many of our listeners have picked up on your great career and your advice. You know what I mean? Some of the quotes that you've given us today, I think it's going to resonate a long way. What do you think, Herman?
I know it is.
Don't pay attention to my quotes.
Oh, no, not your quote, your wife. Bloom where you're planted.
and I mean, I always looking to pick up words of wisdom, and the best way for me to remember them is a quote or is a little nugget.
Yeah.
So I got a couple today, and I'm going to use them.
Well, sir,
thank you, Herman, and thank y'all for having me.
We want to say thank you for taking time with us, and we just have to give a little kudos to our leader, Penny Rogers, who started this Mustard Seed almost 10 years ago, and to our great production manager there, Miss Vivian, because we couldn't do this without their support. So we want to give them their flowers now, but also we want to say to you, sir, thank you very much. Herman, I know you join me in saying that, so why don't you close us out, Herman?
Well, thank you, General, Brigadier General, very much. It was a great program. We picked up a lot of words of wisdom, a lot of experience, and I sure our audience did, and as is WCEG's goal and vision to empower the community. And we always say everyone has someone in their family that's a veteran. So we're talking to the entire community. So we thank everybody for tuning in and have a good weekend. Thank you, sir.